My name is Raphael. I'm 38 years old. I'm a civil engineer. I built my career from nothing. No inheritance, no connections, no shortcuts. 6 months ago, my wife disappeared in the middle of the night. No note, no explanation. Just signed divorce papers sitting on the living room table. Her father told me not to wait for her. He called me naive for believing she'd come back. He pushed me for weeks to sign the documents and move on with my life. I refused. Because the woman I loved was not capable of leaving like that. Not without a reason. Not without a single word. 6 months later, while visiting one of her family's construction sites in upstate New York, I saw her. My missing wife, working as a construction laborer on a project owned by her own family's company. And when she finally told me what had happened that night, everything I thought I knew about her family collapsed. But to understand that, you need to understand where Juliana came from. People think money solves everything. In her case, it only made things more complicated. Juliana was born into a kind of wealth I'd never seen up close until I met her. Her father, Henry Whitmore, had built one of the largest real estate groups on the East Coast. By the time Juliana was 30, she was already running one of the company's divisions. Business magazines loved writing about her, but none of it mattered to her the way it mattered to him. I was the opposite of the world she grew up in. I wasn't wealthy. I didn't have a family name that opened doors. The first time Henry met me, he looked at me with that specific expression of someone calculating your worth in their head and arriving at a number that doesn't work for them. I later found out he told Juliana, "People like him don't last in our world." Juliana never cared about that. She was the kind of woman who remembered small details about people, who fixed things herself instead of calling someone to do it, who could make our daughter laugh even on the worst days. That was why I loved her. We'd been married for 7 years. Our daughter Laura had just turned 5. To the outside world, our life looked perfect. Behind closed doors, at family dinners with her father, the tension was always there. He never accepted me openly, never said it directly to my face, but I could see it in his eyes every time we sat at the same table. One night, after Juliana went to put Laura to bed, he leaned toward me with that low voice of an executive used to negotiating in hostile environments. "You know she could have married someone who strengthened the company, right?" I looked at him. "She's married to me," I said. "For now." I didn't respond, but I never forgot those words. Juliana and I moved forward. We ignored the tension as much as we could. We focused on Laura, on our home, on the quiet moments we built together despite everything. Until the night everything changed. It was a rainy Tuesday. I'd come home late from a site visit. The house was unusually quiet. Normally, Laura would run to me the second I walked in. That night, only silence. "Juliana?" Nothing. I walked into the living room and saw the white envelope on the table, my name written in her handwriting. My hands went cold as I opened it. Divorce papers, signed by her. I searched every room. Her clothes were gone. Her phone was off. Laura's small suitcase had disappeared too. My daughter was gone. I called Juliana dozens of times. Voicemail. I reached out to her friends. Nobody knew anything. I spent the night wide awake. In the morning, Henry showed up at the door. He walked into the living room, looked at the envelope on the table, and let out a long breath. "So she finally did it." I looked at him. "What do you mean, finally?" "She left. It was inevitable. She took Laura. She'll bring her back once she settles." The anger rose inside me. "She's my wife." Was. He picked up the divorce papers. "Sign these and move on." "No," his eyes hardened. "You're embarrassing yourself." "I'm not signing anything." He looked at me for a long moment, then left. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, 6 months without a message, without a call, without a trace. Then, on a Thursday morning, I visited a construction site in upstate New York, a residential complex the Whitmore Group was building, where I'd been hired as an outside technical consultant before Juliana disappeared. Routine visit. I stepped out of the car with my clipboard, hard hat on, running on that automatic mode you develop after years of walking job sites. Even after 6 months, part of me was still looking for Juliana. In every crowd, in every face on the street. We walked into the site, dust in the air, workers moving between steel beams and unfinished walls. That's when my feet stopped on their own. At the far end of the site, a woman was lifting a heavy bag of concrete onto her shoulder. Work clothes, hair tied back under a yellow hard hat, face covered in dust. But I knew that posture. I knew the way she held her shoulder when she lifted weight. I knew the line of her neck. Even from that distance, even after 6 months, it was Juliana. For a moment, my brain simply refused to process what I was seeing. The woman who sat beside me at executive dinners was standing there, on that job site, hauling concrete bags like a construction worker. The engineer beside me said something. I didn't hear it. I was already moving. Juliana turned slightly as she adjusted the bag on her shoulder, and our eyes met. The moment she recognized me was physical. Her entire body froze. The bag slipped from her shoulder and dropped to the ground with a heavy thud. 6 months. 6 months of questions. 6 months of pain. 6 months of silence. The anger erupted in my chest. Why? My voice came out shaking. Why did you do this? Juliana didn't answer. That silence only made it worse. You vanished. You took my daughter. You left divorce papers like I wasn't worth a single conversation. Raphael, please, lower your voice. Don't tell me what to do. She looked at me, then at the workers watching around us. Not here. Here. She studied my face, then finally, your father came to see me the night before I left. The world stopped. My father? She nodded slowly. He didn't come alone. Something cold ran through me. Her voice became heavier. He brought 2 men with him, and he told me something very simple. If I didn't disappear from your life, he would make sure Lara never saw another birthday. For a moment, I thought I'd heard wrong. What? She didn't look away. He said I was a stain on your family name, that I was embarrassing the legacy he'd built. Her voice dropped lower. That you should marry someone who would strengthen the company, his head of operations daughter. The pieces started falling into place with a speed that turned my stomach. He told you to sign the papers and vanish. Yes, and if you didn't, he said Lara would disappear, and that if I ever told you the truth, his people would know. The noise of the construction site continued around us, but it was like I was hearing it from underwater. So you left thinking it was the only way to keep Lara safe. I had no choice. Her voice broke slightly. I thought disappearing was the only way to keep you both safe. I looked at the woman in front of me. Dirty work clothes, calloused hands, a face that looked older and more tired than I remembered. That specific expression of someone who'd spent months carrying a weight they couldn't share with anyone. You didn't know, she said quietly. No. I could barely speak. I didn't know anything. And then the truth hit me with a force that bent something inside me. My father. The man I'd trusted my entire life. The same man who had spent 6 months standing beside me telling me Juliana had left because she didn't really love me. That I needed to sign the papers and start over. While he knew everything. While he had been the cause of everything. Where's Lara? Juliana's expression softened slightly. With my sister, somewhere he doesn't know about. She's safe. The relief was so powerful my knees nearly gave out. My daughter was safe. But something stronger than relief was growing inside me. That same evening I made several phone calls. The following week my father organized a dinner at the family estate. The kind of event he loved. Relatives, business partners, investors, everyone gathered to celebrate the group's success and confirm publicly that things were moving exactly as he'd planned. My father moved through the room with his wine glass, receiving compliments, smiling with the confidence of a man who believes the board is exactly where he left it. When I walked in, conversations slowed. Raphael, he smiled. Finally. He looked at my face. You seem better. Looks like you finally accepted things. I didn't respond. I walked toward him. The silence spread through the room as I approached. I was just telling everyone, he continued, still smiling, that my son will soon make a decision that will strengthen our future. I looked around the room, everyone watching. Perfect. Actually, I said calmly, I have something to say too. His smile faltered slightly. For 6 months, I began. My father told me my wife had left because she didn't love me, that I needed to sign the papers and move on. People shifted uncomfortably. You threatened her. A murmur moved through the crowd. You went to her with 2 men, and you told her that if she didn't disappear from my life, my daughter would never see another birthday. The room went completely silent. My father's face drained of color. That's a lie. But there was no conviction in his voice. I stepped closer. The woman you called worthless spent 6 months working as a construction laborer just to protect her family from you. The partners around him looked at him with an expression they'd probably never turned on him before. You destroyed my marriage. You made me believe for 6 months that the woman I loved had betrayed me. And you stood beside me, consoling me while you knew everything. My father's jaw tightened. I did what was best for the company. No, I stepped back. You did what was best for your control. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the key ring he'd given me when he brought me into the company's leadership 3 years earlier. The symbol of the place he thought he was giving me. I set it on the table. You can keep your company. The silence that filled the room was the kind money can't buy. My father's voice came from behind me as I turned toward the door. If you walk out now, don't come back expecting anything. I stopped for 1 second, didn't turn around. I stopped expecting anything from you a long time ago, and kept walking. Outside, the car was waiting. Juliana was leaning against the passenger door, clean clothes, hair down, the same exhaustion in her eyes, but something else too, something that looked like the beginning of a weight being released. When she saw me coming out, uncertainty crossed her face. I walked up to her. Where's Lara? At my sister's apartment, waiting for us. I opened the car door. We can talk on the way. We have a lot to talk about. She nodded. We got in the car and drove away from that house, that company, that man who confused family with a business he could manage however he saw fit. 3 hours later, I had my daughter in my arms. Lara asked why I had taken so long. I told her I'd had some important things to take care of. She asked if Mommy was going to stay. I looked at Juliana. She's staying, I said. And for the first time in 6 months, Lara let out that specific laugh of a child who doesn't know she just heard the most important thing of her day. Months later, sitting here and looking back at everything that happened, I think about how much we underestimate what a person does when they truly love someone. The woman my father called worthless spent 6 months on construction sites, moving from job to job, living on the bare minimum, without complaining to anyone, without asking for help, without exposing what she knew because she believed that exposing it would cost her daughter's life. That's not weakness. That's the kind of strength money doesn't buy and last names don't guarantee. My father got the calculation wrong that he'd been making for years. He thought he could measure a person's value by what they had. He didn't understand that real value doesn't show up on a bank statement. It shows up in what someone endures to protect the people they love. And that's the thing about choices. Every one of them carries a weight that stays with you. My father made his, and lives with them. I made mine, and I sleep in peace with them. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about someone you know or something you've lived through, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Every week we bring real stories about real people who stood back up when life knocked them down. Don't miss the next one. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a story. See you in the next one.